Hello there and welcome to Salford Now. I'm Adam Gooseman.
And I'm Jessica Mason. Coming up on today's programme.
Well, we're just thinking of the local councils now who don't give a hoot about the people that have lived here and grown up here.
Is this the March of Progress? We find out how locals feel about a historic pub being torn down.
1 in 2 of us will be diagnosed with cancer in our lifetime. That statistic has become a reality for this musical duo.
I suffer from myeloma, which is a kind of invisible cancer of the blood. There's no cure for it, but there is treatment. And Myeloma UK are part of a number of charities that are trying to contribute, looking for a cure.
And finally, we find out why our very own Grace Clark was swinging upside down from a crane over Salford Quays. It was all for a good cause.
You've done the worst bit. So, keep these hands up.
I have buried a lot of my friends. I've spoken at 2 funerals before I was 16.
First, this afternoon, with the backing of more than half of Tory MPs, Rishi Sunak was appointed leader of the Conservatives and soon Prime Minister. Conor McCann is here. So, Conor, what's next for the country?
So, tomorrow Liz Truss will tender her resignation to His Majesty the King, and Rishi Sunak will be invited to establish a new government. Over the past few months, we have seen extraordinary moments which seen Rishi Sunak lose a leadership election just 4 weeks ago to the outgoing Prime Minister, Miss Truss. The challenge now is whether or not he can unite the party.
So will there be a general election soon?
Well, I spoke to Dr. Ben Williams and he didn't think so.
There are some questions about how democratic that is, the fact that this is all happening without a general election. But under the rules of our political system, this is something that does happen. Perhaps not as often as this, but there have been many examples over the years of Prime Ministers changing mid-term from the same party and then being replaced. And while there are calls for a general election by the opposition, we don't have to constitutionally have another general election, I think, till January 2025.
So, what's next for Rishi Sunak and what has he had to say?
Well, Dr. Ben Williams had it pretty much spot on there. Mr. Sunak has said that there will be no early general election when he addressed the 1922 committee. He also described the, quote, accidental threat that faces the Tory party. Rishi Sunak will face many challenges when he goes into number 10. He will need to manage an unstable economy and will face many challenges from the opposition. But time will only tell if he'll be able to lead the Conservative Party in the right direction.
Thank you, Conor.
With the cost of living crisis changing habits across the UK, how are taxi cabs surviving against cheaper alternatives such as online taxi services and other means of transport? Lois James went to find out more about this.
With taxi giants such as Bolt and Uber dominating the taxi industry, will local black cabs become a thing of the past? Stuart Ryan owns a taxi firm in the city.
Since Uber's come along, that's took a massive trade off the Hackneys, especially in Salford. Ours is obviously, like I say, governed by the council, so we can't just say, oh, it's X amount per mile.
Following a council meeting review on the fares, black cabs have seen a small increase.
A 2-mile journey will now cost you £5.80, as opposed to £5.24 prior to the recent fare increase.
We think about keeping the customers, and if we can keep the customers by keeping our prices low, by just putting up 20p or 30p, that's not a lot of increase.
From my normal route, it's normally £5.50, £6, and now it's like £8.50, £9. And Uber's even dearer, Uber's like £11.60.
Uber does what they want to do. They don't play by the rules, unfortunately.
Whilst it's clear apps like Uber are taking some customers away, Uber drivers aren't necessarily benefiting.
I mean, it's only what? They only pay me what, £3.40 or something like that. That's all, but they're charging you 25%. Charging us 25%. You probably pay for £5. How much you paid?
Yeah, £5.
Yeah, so we're getting about £3.40 something I'm getting.
Uber have previously said that their drivers are self-employed, enjoy the flexibility and therefore don't need to pay minimum wage.
At the moment, taxi transfers are trying to combat Uber by having our own app where we don't surcharge. So in busy times, when Uber's surcharging, we're not, So we are trying to get people coming back into cabs if we can.
Well, I was on the taxis down there, the black cabs, for 12 years, and I was struggling when I finished about 4 years ago. They're struggling even more now, even less people getting in.
Well, different companies charge different prices as well. Like, say, this is for instance, I've had a taxi from Mount Morrison's. I've had one, my neighbour, she gets a different one than me, because that's cheaper than the one that I get.
It's people that walk down there that jump in them, and you can't force them. Just got to let them decide.
As long as we stick together as an Hackney Carriage family, and we do the right things for the customers loyalty is really good for an Hackney Carriage. So we're hoping that we would keep the regular customers and try and encourage other people to use us by trying and be better, basically. If you can be better than Uber, then why not?
Furniture store and a pub have been demolished in Eccles to make way for a 23-storey apartment block.
Most of Church Street will be pulled down and locals say it will be missed by the community. Stephen Haywood reports.
Demolition work has begun here in Eccles in preparation for a landmark 22-storey apartment complex to be built. However, in creating an area for the future, residents here have had to say goodbye to a huge chunk of their past. The Top House, a pub that has been a mainstay at the top of Church Street since the 1860s, has been torn away brick by brick, as well as Booth's furniture store next door, which has also been demolished. This has obviously left residents angered and upset about their history being destroyed right in front of their eyes.
Well, that's one of my favourite pubs I used to drink, and it is quite sad, really. Yeah. Eccles used to be a vibrant town, really vibrant when I was a kid. Pub on the weekends, you couldn't cycle through there. It's just a buzzing town, really, but it just looks really run down now. The way it's going, that's probably prime real estate, really, and that's just the way it's going.
It's funny, we've been in all those places, and when we met in a store called Redmond's. That was in 1967, and that was the local supermarket as such, but it was a community supermarket where you could go in, you could have a coffee, you could buy anything you wanted, everything was fresh, and then the supermarket started moving in. One of the biggest mistakes here was flattening the old bus station, taking the old market away. There's no market as such now. We have one here now, but it's not supported as it used to be. You know, it's just a shame that it's going downhill, and they want us to go shopping out of town. Yeah. You know, and we don't want to. We need shops on our doorstep where we can go when we're in our older age. It was a local pub that everybody supported. You could go in there, they'd be playing the piano at one time, everybody'd be having a sing-song. Like most of the public houses around Eccles, a lot of them have closed now, simply because the way the council's working and the way life is today, there's no local works as such. We had engineering works, paint works, chemical works. They all used to support the local shops, the local public houses. All of them are taken away now. Yeah. Everything seems to be directed at Manchester. Exactly. They don't care about Salford, Eccles. When it was Eccles Borough, it was a totally different place altogether.
Next, our reporter Grace Clark took part in an unusual fundraiser at the weekend, raising money for a children's charity research charity. Here was all the details.
Rising 170 feet over Salford Quays, just seconds from free falling, with nothing but a glorified elastic band tied to my ankles.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Why am I putting myself through this? Well, it's for people like Charlotte.
When I was 11, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, which is a really rare and aggressive form of leukemia in children.
Charlotte underwent 3 rounds of chemotherapy and a bone marrow transplant. She is now cancer-free, but there were serious side effects to her treatment.
I was wheelchair dependent for about 5 years after, and then even now, 8 years, nearly 9 years down the line in January, I'm still using crutches or a walking stick, or I wake up in the night with a lot of pain. My list of medications is about as long as my arm. I have issues with like internal organs, like my kidneys leak, my ovaries died, so I don't have like a normal period anymore. I can't have kids in the future, and a lot of my medication now makes my head a bit fuzzy, so I get short-term memory issues, processing speed issues, and things like that, which is why I joined KidScan.
In 2017, Charlotte became an ambassador for KidScan, a Salford-based charity researching better treatments for children's cancer. In the UK, 20% of children don't survive cancer because of limited treatment options. Of those that do, 60% will suffer life-limiting side effects from the same treatment that saved their lives. KidScan is working to find new treatments that only target cancerous cells. Their work relies largely on donations, and this weekend they took fundraising to new heights.
We didn't want to go with your average bake sale. We wanted to do something a little bit more extreme, and what's more extreme than a bungee jump? COVID hit the charity pretty hard, as well as the cost of living at the moment, but this is a really great way to get involved because more people are willing to sponsor to see you do crazy things like this.
The research they're doing could be life-saving, as Charlotte's story is just one of thousands like it.
On the ward, I had a lot of friends who, like Gracie, who was also a patient ambassador. She had a brain tumour, and sadly she's passed away. I have buried a lot of my friends. I've spoken at 2 funerals before I was 16. So anybody working to get a cure was amazing.
So, for a very worthy cause, I made the big leap. Grace Clark, Salford Now.
Now for a sports update. Salford Red Devils women's team have been promoted to Betfred Women's Super League following their remarkable debut season.
They won all but 2 of their games and picked up 2 trophies in the process. Head coach Chris Bates spoke to Leon Jones.
What does promotion mean for the players and the staff at Salford Red Devils?
And it's absolutely massive. So promotion means that through the first phase of setting up that team, we've been successful well ahead of time.
Do you think that a promotion will have an impact on young girls getting into rugby?
I really hope so. I think there's because we're ultimately amateur, anybody can come down and trial for us. So our trials are at the beginning of November, and they are open trials. We aren't planning currently to go through those trial lists and say, actually, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. So if you're a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl, then you've got a pathway that the foundation have set up with Trafford Metrovics that links straight into our first team. So we've already trained with those pathway girls once. So that's entirely, within your grasp.
Unique Ladies is a networking group that focuses on helping with building the confidence and networks of female entrepreneurs in Salford. Emma White went to see why it is so important.
To network and self-promote is an essential tool for career advancement, but not everyone feels equally confident when being put to the task. The Unique Ladies Salford group in Worsley was created with the aim to inspire all women in business, while at the same time forming a safe space for them to chat, drink tea and socialise. Vicky Bradbury is a member of the group, and although she isn't self-employed, she still enjoys going along to the sessions and socialising, while gaining business contacts at the same time.
What I like about Unique Ladies is it's not just about networking, it's a bit of a support group as well, and all the women who come are really supportive of other people's businesses, but also it's like a really positive, female friendly group to be part of.
The group runs every month at Ellesmere Sports Club in Worsley and is just one of the 9 groups located in the northwest. And for the leader of the group, Catherine Taylor, the importance of a place for women to network is clear.
I think there's a different atmosphere and a different environment when it's female only. I think there's still, even in this day and age, there's still a lot of issues in the workplace or just in business in general where women don't always feel able to speak up.
Even in the 21st century, women are 28% less likely than men to have a strong network, according to LinkedIn data.
They need a platform to be women just to go out there and do what they do. And if we want to talk shoes and handbags, we'll talk shoes and handbags.
Because of the gender gap, CEO Susie R turned the idea of Unique Ladies from a hobby into a passion.
We really created something special.
Emma White, Salford Now.
It's 200 years since the Battle of Trafalgar, the most significant naval victory in British history, so veterans in Salford gathered to mark the occasion.
But for some, the memories of their service are tinged with sadness. Up to the turn of this century, the Navy didn't allow LGBTQ+ people to serve. Ben Rudd has more.
Marking the anniversary of one of the most significant naval battles in British history, these veterans are celebrating their service 200 years on from the Battle of Trafalgar. But for many, life in the Navy wasn't so easy.
I knew I was gay and that wasn't a place for me because the law said it wasn't a place for me at the time. So all I wanted to do was join the Navy, which I did. And then when I found my home, I was then, through the behaviours of other people, through the policy, through the law, I was then very quickly realised that it wasn't actually, I wasn't allowed in, basically, and that's so I could have stayed and I could have been caught and then criminalised, investigated, made to, well, I had all my good conduct stripped away from me, all the good work I did when I was in the military would have been took away, any medals I would have won would have took away from me.
Anthony served in the Navy for 6 years before leaving in 1994, where the ban on homosexuality was only lifted in 2000 by the European Court of Human Rights. Now he says that it's more important than ever for veterans to socialise. How important is it for veterans? Does it improve their mental health and mental
Absolutely,
well-being?
yeah, it does. It improves mine because I can have them conversations, but also the more people join now, it's more important now than ever. More important now for that reason.
Why is it so important to celebrate the Battle of Trafalgar?
It's just basically the tradition of the Royal Navy. It's our main day. It's the one we look forward to. It's one of the biggest days, the biggest celebration, the biggest battle the Royal Navy actually won. So that's why we celebrate it. And of course Lord Nelson, who's immortal as far as we're concerned.
The Navy veterans were also joined by Salford ceremonial mayor Anne-Marie Humphreys, who highlighted the importance of their service.
Extremely important. We're an island, and you know, that's how we built who we were in the former empire, and now the Commonwealth, because of the expertise of the mariners and the Royal Navy. That's you know, it's part of our fabric. It's part of our DNA.
And what better way to celebrate an anniversary than with cake? Ben Rudd, Salford Now.
Cancer became a reality to singing duo Sheedy Frost when Vincent Sheedy, one half of the band, was diagnosed with myeloma.
Inspired by Vincent's story, the pair have been hosting charity fundraisers in Salford. Lydia Hodson reports.
The lives of longtime singing duo Paul Frost and Vincent Sheedy were changed forever when Vincent was diagnosed with a devastating disease.
I suffer from myeloma, which is a kind of invisible cancer of the blood. There's no cure for it, but there is treatment. And Myeloma UK are part of a number of charities that are trying to contribute, looking for a cure, which, you know, we all hope will happen in the future.
The duo, known as Sheedy Frost, have been hosting a series of fundraisers in aid of Myeloma UK. The finale, a concert entitled Sheedy Frost and Guests, is here at Eccles Town Hall.
Vince and I met at university in 1967, formed the band, and we had a recording contract in 1970, and we did various things, but everything sort of slipped away, and we sort of reformed after a long break in the 2000, and we've been playing ever since.
The months of fundraising, inspired by Vincent's story, have seen a variety of activities, not all of them musical.
Paul's already done a walk around the South Wales coastal track, which he'll talk a little bit about tonight, and he raised over £1,500 for Myeloma UK that way, and this is like the icing on the cake.
Since studying in Manchester over 50 years ago, Sheedy Frost have made a name for themselves across Salford. The Eccles gig was a sellout. For some, the evening was more of a family affair.
We're here tonight to support my dad, who is playing, and Vince, obviously, this is all for Vince, to raise awareness and money for Myeloma UK as a back end to the hike that we did earlier in the year for Vince, and to wish him a speedy recovery.
The healing power of music is sure to keep this friendship alive for many more years to come. Lydia Horton, Salford Now.
That's all we've got time for on today's programme.
Join us again tomorrow for another jam-packed show.
Bye.
Goodbye.